What is up, YouTube? This is Rainy B bringing you that homicidal tea, but this is the shorts version. You don't watch me do my makeup this whole time, and I tell the story pretty quickly. If you have any questions about the look that I am going to wear during this video, just post a comment, and then I can do a reply video showing you the technique and or products that I use. But let's just get on to the story of Douglas Perry. Wow. It was 1974 in Spokane, Washington. Now, the story starts on a high note. Now, multiple murders of sex workers over a decade that went unsolved, only to start again in the late 80s and early 90s. Always such uplifting stuff, eh? One of the guys that kept coming up on the investigation was named Douglas Perry. He had a long rap sheet in 1974, second-degree assault, 1979, dangerous weapons violation, 1986, second-degree assault, 1987, reckless endangerment, 1988, assault, and again in 1988, Perry was arrested by federal agents for possession of a pipe bomb. Okay. A search of his home yielded 22 handguns. Most of them were 22 caliber, and 27 rifles and 20,000 rounds of ammunition. Okay. Well, it keeps going. In 1989, Perry was arrested in Spokane for soliciting sex from prostitutes. Now, coincidentally, sex workers started showing up dead the following year. All of them were shot with a 22 caliber weapon, and their nude or partially nude bodies were found in the Spokane or near the Spokane River. Now, at the time, detectives considered the three deaths to be a continuation of the prior string of murders. But back to good old Doug. Now, in 1994, Perry was again arrested for unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition, including a 22 handgun and also 22 rifles. But as a convicted felon, Perry was prohibited from possessing firearms. So it doesn't seem like many of these charges stuck. He seemingly gets out of trouble every time. This time, though, he actually got real time. 2 years, anyway. Well, while Perry was in prison from January 95 to October 1997, other inmates said that they heard him talking about prostitutes a lot. Like, talked about them in such a hateful way that they thought that he may have been involved in those prostitute murders. Fast forward a little bit to December of 1988. A prostitute who'd done house calls at Perry's home, she reported to police that she saw a lot of guns and knives and a crossbow. But let me interrupt. How did she go to the police? I mean, what did she say? She stumbled in there saying that she sold Mary Kay or something? More like selling Mary Lay, am I right? No, don't. No jokes. Anyway, she described his car to the police officers, and then they did a routine traffic stop where they searched it. Well, they found attorney's papers that said that he had specific psychosis disorder, but he didn't, and it said something about him not liking females, but in all the other paperwork it was just medical papers and nothing else really came of it. But police did note what they found. Police did note what they found on his record and whatnot. Well, another suspect came known to police, and that was Robert L. Yates, and he was arrested in 2000, initially for one murder, but then he was tied by DNA to 12 more, and it was around this time that a lot of states started taking DNA from arrested people. Louisiana was the first in 1997. Well, Robert Yates was convicted and sentenced to 408 years in prison. Now, in 2001, Yates was charged and convicted with 2 more murders, and this time he received the death penalty. You know, my favorite. Detectives looked deeper at Yates for the murders of the 3 prostitutes that were found, and they thought maybe that it would be a part of the previous string of sex workers that were murdered. But however, Yates had been in the U.S. Army, and he was stationed in Germany in February through March of 1990. He couldn't have murdered Nikki Lowe, Kathy Brisebois, and Yolanda Sapp. The 3 murders were reassigned to cold case detectives. Now, again, at this time, one name kept coming up, Douglas Perry. They wanted to interview him again and see what was going on, and that was it. The search was on. But good old Mr. Perry, you remember him? Now, I should probably tell you more about those attorney's papers that they found in the back of his car. I mean, the attorney's papers, yes, but the papers actually said he had a gender psychosis disorder. And those other medical papers? Those were medical papers explaining those treatments, like medical treatments being transition surgery and hormone replacement therapy. That's what led Douglas Perry to fly to good old Thailand for gender reassignment surgery in 2000. That's when he became Donna Perry. So that name that kept coming up on the cold case detectives, that man Douglas Perry they were looking for, he no longer existed. Well, Perry said too much around 2007 to 2008. He was talking to his social worker at the Department of Social and Health Services. Perry talked about shooting people and said, I knew I was going to end up dead or in prison again if I didn't do something. I got gelded like a horse and got my life back under control. Now, what? I was like, gelded. So I looked up Wikipedia. What does gelding mean? A gelding is a castrated male horse or other equine, such as a pony, donkey, or mule. Castration, as well as the elimination of hormonally driven behavior associated with stallion, allows a male equine to be calmer, better behaved, making it quieter, gentler, and generally more suitable animal as an everyday working animal. Wow. Well, the social worker knew that there was something weird about that, and she passed their statements on to the law enforcement, but again, nothing came out of it at the time. So some time has passed since the beginning of the story, and that's when more states started to add retaining DNA of arrested people for major crimes as a part of their bookend process when they did prisoner intake. Now, in another part of the United States in 2009, cold case detectives found matter under Miss Brisebois' middle finger, her left middle finger. It was submitted for DNA analysis. CODIS was just a baby, still new blooming beacon of hope for detectives. From matter found under her fingernail, a full male profile was developed. It was entered into CODIS. Nothing. But back to old girl Perry. She had not changed her ways. In 2012, Perry was arrested again by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms for unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition. A search of her home recovered more firearms. She was sentenced to 18 months and placed in a federal prison in Fort Worth, Texas. She boasted to her female cellmate, saying that she was a contract killer who had killed 9 prostitutes. One cellmate stated that she told me becoming a woman was a disguise to take the heat off her, him, whatever. Ugh. That an elderly lady with mental illness could never get caught. She also claimed to kill 2 other prostitutes after returning from Thailand. Now, a check of Perry's DNA that was taken during his intake, her intake, whatever. I don't respect his gender, so whatever. It actually revealed a match that had been taken from Miss Brisebois' fingernail. So a further match was found on his DNA from a blanket wrapped around Yolanda Sapp, and then a fingerprint match from Nikki Lowe's purse, which had been found in a dumpster. A further search of Perry's home found a box containing panties that were in a small size, way too small to be her own. In an interview of November 2012, Donna said, "Douglas didn't stop. Donna stopped it. I'm not going to admit I killed anyone. I didn't. Donna has killed nobody. And I don't know if Doug did or not. It was 20 years ago, and I have no idea if he did it or he did not." She also said that having a sex change is a permanent way to control any violence, that it's the results of the greatest downturn of violence. Okay. Anyway, I'll wait till the end until I start slashing her character to death. In July of 2017, Perry was found fit to stand trial and subsequently was found guilty and sentenced to 3 life sentences without parole. Oy. So Yates is still in death row. He's contested his death sentence and on the grounds that he suffers from severe paraphilic disorder. That's where necrophilia falls under. Now, Robert Yates, I need to dig more into him. I mean, maybe. Researching paraphilia, I found it has to do with sexual attraction to anything that requires something other than human. Corpses are usually the first, so maybe not. Well, that's it for our ladyboy Perry. You know, and I'm not saying that and being disrespectful for him saying he's transgender. I just don't believe him is all. That's where the disrespect comes from. I mean, don't toy with the plight of poor people that actually truly suffer from gender dysmorphia. I mean, and if you do fuck with those kind of people, you're a punk bitch. You can't take the karma of being who you are because obviously you suck. But then when I think about karma, I also think about how Douglas Perry hates women, yet he is confined to a cell surrounded by them all day. Sounds like a good dose of karma to me. Thank you so much for watching, and this is a new part where I go over possible takeaways and OAB points. Takeaways, I really don't have ones. I mean, there's not a lot that these victims could have done to avoid this pathetic piece of shit. They were leading a high-risk lifestyle, you know? I mean, and that puts them in the crosshairs for predators. Sometimes situations demand that you risk your life to support yourself, your habit, or your family. And it reminds me of a First 48. Ooh, I gotta look into that one. Anyway, but not too many safety tips to look for on this one either. I mean, OAB tips, I already did my makeup, so there's really not many. So wear your sunscreen, ladies. And that's it for this case. If you want more of these shorts, it's going to be over here. And then if you want more of the regular ones, they're going to be here. And then if you want to subscribe, click here. Thanks. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.